Wowee. This bag is completely filled with all of my cream eyeshadows. There is quite a lot to go through, but in 2019, I kind of became super enamored with cream eyeshadows. And in today's video, I wanna go through my entire collection. I don't know how many I'm going to get rid of, to be honest, but I can definitely make a little bit of room. I'm going to be doing quick reviews of every single one of these products so you can get a feel for them, but I do have some in-depth reviews, so I will leave my 1 week of cream eyeshadow playlist link down below. I did an entire week where I reviewed quite a few cream eyeshadows, but today I'm going through my entire collection, talking about some new favorites, and then also going over some old standbys and hopefully just getting rid of some and making a little bit of room. So let's start here for now. This is my collection of Nudestix, the magnetic eye pencils, and I have a few mattes as well as the shimmers. I can tell you right off the bat, I'm going to keep the mattes and get rid of these shimmers and pass these along. I'm just not a huge fan of these. They look a little bit dry on my eyes. I do think the shimmer is there, but it's not as shimmery as I would like, so a little bit subdued. I'm passing along Twilight, Angel, and Lilith, and then I'm going to keep my 3 matte shades, which are Taupe, Putty, and Army. And I like these mattes when I'm looking for a more blown out winged eye look. This is not the most blendable product, but I really like using the Taupe and the Army shade, almost kind of like a liner, and then the Putty shade is really good if you just need a budge-proof base. These are incredibly budge-proof, probably my most long wear cream eyeshadow that I have. So if you have very, very oily skin and you're looking for some mattes, I definitely recommend these. Great pigmentation, but they definitely take a little bit longer to blend. Again, if I need long wear makeup in a cream form, I'm going for these. So I'm going to keep these and pass along these. These are the Natasha Denona Chroma Crystal Topcoats. I have the peach shade as well as the gray brown shade. And these are very, very special in my opinion. They're more of like a top coat. They give a very glossy look to the skin. That is the shade Peach, and that is the shade Gray Brown. If you really like a more subtle cream eyeshadow look that's just going to kind of give your skin that really glossy, pretty sheen, I think these are very, very unique and pretty. They're not incredibly long wearing, but I honestly don't mind because these to me are more of like an everyday sort of cream eyeshadow when I just want some glossiness to my lids and I want my lids to just have a more healthy look. I think these make my lids look very hydrated and glossy, as I was saying before. So I'm going to be keeping these. I really enjoy them. Okay, moving right along, let's go through some eyeshadow sticks. Let's first start off with these long-lasting eyeshadow sticks from Kiko. I am a very, very big fan of these. If you want a very affordable cream eyeshadow, I think these are gorgeous. I have the shade 05. This one is really pretty. 38, which is one of my favorites as well. And I also have the shade 05, which is there on the end. They're creamy, blendable, and easy use, which if you are purchasing a stick eyeshadow, I assume that you really enjoy the fact that they're very convenient. So whereas something like the Nudestix, you're not necessarily getting the convenience of the stick product because they're not super blendable. These you can really blend out with a finger and get a really pretty, slightly sparkly eye look. They look flattering on the lids, they're affordable. The only thing I wish that they had were matte shades. I saw maybe a couple on the website in shades I really wouldn't use, like bright peaches. So I'm going to be keeping all 3 of these. I'm going to be giving away this little sample of the Caviar stick from Laura Mercier. Long story short, I think that it's worth investing in some of the matte shades, but to be honest, I think that the Kiko ones are just as good. And for me, shimmer shades can be more easily formulated, so you're better off going with something like the Kiko, whereas the mattes within the Laura Mercier range might be something you want to invest in. This just doesn't wow me. It's just a little bit boring. It doesn't give me a lot of shine, though it's blendable. I don't really find it super flattering on my lids either. I'm going to be passing that along. And lastly, I have a couple of the CoverGirl TruNaked Queenship cream eyeshadows. I have the shade 920 and 905. The shimmer shades I would not recommend within this line. They're pretty, but they flake off. I'm going to be passing along 920, but I will be keeping this matte shade. I'd love to try other matte shades within this CoverGirl stick, because if you see there, it is an incredibly blendable and pretty matte shade. This will give you a little bit of time to blend, but it will set down and be quite budge proof. So I really, really like this one. I'm going to be keeping that one. Okay, make your guess right now. What is in my hand? It is probably my favorite cream eyeshadow out there. I never expected and wanted to love this as much as I did, but Tom Ford Platinum is really an incredible, incredible eyeshadow. The formula on here is very creamy, slightly moussey, but more on the creamy side. I hope you can see a little bit better. I switched around the light, but there is like a softness and a subtlety to this one. If I'm wearing a cream eyeshadow, I mean, half the time I'm going towards this one. It's not the most long wearing, but I've found that this one is much more long wearing than some of the other Tom Ford shades. It will instantly give you a very reflective, almost like a glossy lid effect. The formula is creamy, easy to blend, definitely the best single cream eyeshadow that I own, and I will always recommend it for that reason, so I'm going to be keeping that one. I also really enjoy the Charlotte Tilbury Eyes to Mesmerize. If you're interested in kind of a comparison between the two, I have a video on that. One is in the shade Mona Lisa, and the Charlotte Tilbury is definitely more of like a whipped texture, very intense pigment right away. I love this shade when I'm looking for a very quick smoky eye. It's creamy, the formula feels very substantial and luxe. I do find that I get a little bit of creasing just like with the Tom Ford, but it's nothing that I mind. I tried one of the lighter shades from Charlotte Tilbury and found it kind of underwhelming. Same thing with the Tom Ford, whereas these two shades I found to perform excellently, so I also will be keeping that one. Talked about a couple of cream eyeshadows that are incredibly expensive. I want to talk about this AOA Studio cream eyeshadow, and I bought this on Shop Miss A. Quite a few of their products are like $1 a piece. This is their Velour shadow in the shade Holiday. This is actually a recommendation from SMJ Makeup. She said I would really enjoy this, and I really, really do. This formula is quite similar to the Colourpop Supershock shadows. It has a little bit more of a putty texture, but this is actually, I feel, a little bit more creamy than that one, and I think has a little bit more pigment, but as you can see, this gives you such a pretty, pretty shine. I wore this in last week's video, and a lot of you were asking what I was wearing on my lids. It was this, and I just love the sheeny look. It gives you, again, it gives you that wet look to your lids without it looking overly creamy, and it's going to blend out really easily into the lid for a perfect one shadow look, and it's $1. I'm kind of blown away that they were able to create a formula like this for $1. Very flattering on the lids, very pretty. So I'm actually interested in checking out some of the other shades from this line, but yes, definitely keeping that one. A product I'm going to be passing along. Actually, I'm going to throw this one away because it's pretty much dried out. It is the PUR Cosmetics Eye Polish. This is a liquid eyeshadow. Yeah, you can see it's all dried out. This was pretty when I had it, but I did wish it was a little bit creamier. I never found that I got enough of a really wet and shiny look when I wore it. This is the shade Cashmere. Now that it's all kind of dried out in here, it's probably time to just throw this one away. Some cream eyeshadows that I adore are these from Rituel de Fille. They're the Ash and Ember Eye Soots. These are definitely a more unique cream eyeshadow for sure. A pigment mixed with an oil, so it lies somewhere between a cream eyeshadow and a powder. The only thing I don't enjoy is that I can't really swatch these for you because this top part is so small you can barely fit a finger in there. I have the shade Love Spell. There's Golden Age. I really like that one as well. And that's the shade Half Light. That one's definitely still my favorite. They're really an incredible product because they really kind of melt in with the skin because there is a little bit of oil in here mixed with the pigment. It ends up blending out onto the skin the way a powder would, but it has the look of a cream and it ends up making the lids look incredibly smooth. That's something that I really don't like about powder eyeshadow is that I have dry skin, and quite often it gives me a very textured and dry look. So I really need my eyeshadows to look like they're kind of just melting and blending in with the skin. And these really do that, especially because they're so thin. Whereas something like this has a little bit more of a creaminess to it. So you're gonna kind of, you know, barely see it sitting on the lids. Whereas this, you can't really tell because it's so thin. It looks just that much more natural. So again, I really, really love these. They're a little bit more expensive, but I think I love Half Light almost as much as I love Tom Ford. I mean, maybe they're tied for first, to be honest. Next, let's talk about this little Roen eyeshadow palette. This is the 52 Degrees palette. This is the cool toned one. So at one point I did have the warm tone one, and I was not a huge fan of it. This is what the eyeshadows look like all swatched out. One thing that I think is important to keep in mind with the Roen eyeshadow palette, the formulas throughout the different shades, I do feel like are different. For example, this purple shade has a very fine glitter, whereas these two shades have a little bit more sparkle to them and feel a little bit thicker. You can kind of see within the palette as well, these are like more textured cream eyeshadows, and I don't think that it's in a bad way whatsoever because they kind of just melt into your finger. I think that the warm palette had just a little bit more texture than I was looking for, but within these, I still get a little bit of that textured look, you know, that definition, while still looking very smooth on the lids. If you want like a lot of texture, a lot of glitz, I would go with the Disco shade, because that one did have like a flaky sparkliness to it that I think was really, really cool, just not something that I would wear for every day. Roen has definitely done something different, and that's hard to do with so many different eyeshadow formulas coming out. So I really like this one. I would recommend the 52 Degrees for sure, and I'm keeping that one. Next, let's talk about my Colourpop Supershock eyeshadows. I really, really adore these. I have a couple of matte and some more like high shine finish shades. I have Hanky Panky. My dog's name is Hank, so that one always cracks me up. You can see that the matte shades are very even. They're not incredibly pigmented, but if you're looking for that sort of effortless wash of color, they're incredibly pretty. Very even, very smooth. Again, it's difficult to find good mattes at the drugstore or at an affordable price, so I will be keeping both of the matte shades. As for the shimmer shades, one of my favorites is this shade Cosmic Charge. This definitely is not as putty-ish as some of the other ones. It gives such a high shine effect though. This to me gives a very like Tom Ford Hourglass-esque look for definitely not as much money. I love Cosmic Charge. This is kind of the one I always reach for when I'm not going for any of the mattes, so I'm definitely keeping this one. A little quirky is also the same sort of texture, definitely loosely packed in here, but you can see there that same really high shine glossy finish. And that's one thing that I really like about these, is that once you kind of lay them down on the lids, they're not going to look textured. They kind of just melt into the skin in a really pretty way. So I will also be keeping that one. If you want an alternative to the Natasha Denona, I would go with a shade like this one. This one is Sailor. Not a lot of base pigment throughout it, just like the Natasha Denona Chroma Crystal Topcoats. You can see that it just kind of gives that slightly more wet look to the skin. But if I'm being honest, this shade in particular in Sailor has kind of like a blue glitter throughout. Not incredibly noticeable, you can't really see it on there, but I don't reach for it a lot because of that. So I will be passing this one along, and I'm also going to pass along Like a Shot. This one is really pretty, and this one definitely has more of that traditional Colourpop formula. It's definitely more putty, creamy, and there's no doubt that it is creamy and pretty, but I'm not as impressed with it as I am these other shades. So I'm going to be passing this one along. You guys go over here. Next we have the Hourglass Scattered Light in Smoke specifically. This one, oh, there's a little bit of crumble in here. This one is absolutely my favorite. You can see even in here, it has a similar texture to the Colourpop. This is to me what I call sophisticated sparkle. If you want that wet, glossy, but sparkly look to the lids, this is absolutely gorgeous. Of course, you can go like the more affordable route, but I do find that these hourglass ones last a little bit longer on my lids. In general, it just looks very refined. Out of all of my top coat sort of products, I've reached for this one, I think, the most. Another one that I really like, but this one is more if you want a pretty dramatic look, because this one has quite a bit of base pigment. This is the Marc Jacobs Sequins in Topaz Flash. So I really like the hourglass one because this can be appropriate for like every day, you know? Whereas this, I would not wear for every day. You can see the color is absolutely gorgeous, but this is a quite intense product, at least if you like more natural makeup like I do. It gives quite a lot of pigment right out of the gate, and there's a lot more glitter, more noticeable glitter, I guess. But there's still something really pretty about this formula, and if I want to go that sort of glitzy route, this is the one that I tend to go with, so I'm going to be keeping that. Next, we have the Glossier Lid Stars. These are really pretty if you want an incredibly natural cream eyeshadow look. And I mean incredibly natural. These are very sheer products. Moon has definitely been a favorite in the past. You can see there it just offers that really pretty shine. But these are very thin and silky, so the formula I think is really interesting and unique. This is the shade Slip next to it. You can see these two shades are definitely more on the sheer side. I don't find myself reaching for them, so I'm going to be passing those along. But I will be keeping these two shades, which are my favorite. This is the shade Cub. You can see there's a lot more pigment to that one. I just love that shine that it gives, as well as the shade Fawn. Those two have a little bit more pigment, which I do like, while still offering that really smooth look. Definitely keeping these two. I'm going to be passing along this Glossier Play Glitter Jelly because I'm just not using it. I was really hoping that I would kind of break out of my comfort zone and use this more. What shade is this? This is the shade Glass Bonsai. I love that name, but I'm honestly just not using it. I rarely go for a product like this. Passing that along. Now that my hands are just completely covered in glitter, I have two more cream eyeshadows. I have this one from Beauty by Pop Sugar in Shine Bright. I actually did a tutorial using this product, and a lot of you were really excited to see this because it gives you a glossy lid effect. See there, it can give you a glossy lid effect without looking like gloss. This reminds me of the Fenty Diamond Powder Highlight, except in a cream putty eyeshadow formula. I love it. Definitely keeping that one. And we have the Jillian Dempsey Lid Tint. This is in the shade Peach. I really, really like this if, again, you want more of a glossy lid look. Definitely do need to warm it up in your fingers. And kind of swiped on the lid, it's going to give you a one shadow glossy lid look. I do really like that about this, but I'm just not using it. I'm not utilizing it. And though I know a lot of you really like these and I do appreciate it for what it is, I'm just not reaching for it. Passing that along. I'm going to leave all of the products linked down below for you guys. These are all of the cream eyeshadows I am keeping, and I'm passing along all of these. Oh wait, this has the 3 Nudestix that I'm keeping, so. And then I am passing along all of these. So I think that's pretty good. Definitely make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you loved it. I will leave my declutter playlist linked down below if you want to see some of those other videos. But in general, I hope that you really enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next one.